Alright, hi, my name is Sam Ehrenholtz. You may be wondering what the characters on the screen represent. They're Japanese and they mean wabi-sabi, which characterizes a wide-ranging Japanese worldview or aesthetic that is centered on the acceptance of transience and imperfection. Wabi-sabi is often defined as the beauty of the imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete, and it stems from the Zen Buddhist teaching of the three marks of existence, which is pictured on the screen right now as the symbol for the three marks. While the definition I've given for wabi-sabi is solid, it's not complete. The reason for this is because wabi-sabi is a very hard term to give an all-inclusive, complete definition to. The reason for this is because it represents a wide-ranging, comprehensive Japanese worldview. On the screen you can see a common symbol for wabi-sabi on the side of that bowl. According to Leonard Cohen, wabi-sabi is the most characteristic feature of what we think of as Japanese beauty, and it occupies roughly the same spot in the Japanese pantheon of aesthetic values that Greek ideals of perfection and beauty hold in the Western tradition. He's a pioneer in studying wabi-sabi for the West, and in his book, Wabi-Sabi for Artists, Designers, Poets, and Philosophers, he unveils to designers how they should incorporate wabi-sabi into their designs. In the first 300 words of his book, he states that wabi-sabi is the beauty in the humble and the modest, the beauty of the unconventional, and then the beauty of the imperfect, incomplete, and impermanent. And in it, he wrote a sequel to it, just diving further into things he missed, and this was released less than a month ago, I believe. To give a little background on wabi-sabi, it stems directly from Zen Buddhism. And Zen Buddhism is a school of Mahayana Buddhism, which started in China and then worked its way down to Vietnam first, and then eventually over northeast to Korea, and finally to Japan. And this background helps us understand the geographical origins of how wabi-sabi came to be. And wabi-sabi was first coined by Japanese tea masters, poets, and painters who practiced Zen. And on the screen you can see like an interpretation of what they think Japanese tea masters look like in the 1450s, I believe. Zen Buddhism and wabi-sabi are so closely linked that this symbol, which originally stood for just Zen Buddhism, has embodied both wabi-sabi and Zen Buddhism. And if you ask the average civilian on the streets of anywhere in Asia what this meant, mostly China, they would use it interchangeably for wabi-sabi and Zen Buddhism. And this is a Zen garden that was formed in 1450, named Ryo-en-ji, and the clay wall on the back has subtle orange and brown tones from age, and it represents wabi, while the rocks represent sabi. And then this is another Zen garden named Kenro-kuen, and this was a tea master's house that was deliberately had the roof off-centered and then the bottom right deck at an angle. And they found beauty in this, that it wasn't perfect. And wabi-sabi is not instinctive to the Western mind, because finding imperfections as beauty isn't how we've been socialized and trained. But to people who do practice wabi-sabi, bowls like these have significant meaning. They find more meaning than just what they represent. And then there's a lot we can learn from wabi-sabi. Take, for example, one of the most visually perfect buildings in the West. Even it can withstand the elements through time, but somehow the imperfections from time have their own beauty. The implications of wabi-sabi for designers is that we should design knowing that what we make cannot be perfect, and we should design. We shouldn't try to hide our imperfections, but bring light to them and design to them. Take, for example, the Leaning Tower of Pisa. The leaning makes it more beautiful. And I want to leave you with a quote from Raffi Frank. He states that if we're constantly looking at the crack, we will completely miss the diamond.
can hear you.
I think he really knew what he was talking about.
Yes.
I agree, you definitely had like a very good script and you spoke to a good level, but a lot of times you would look at the slides, so just make sure you don't look at the slides because your material is not there, it's like in your head, so just look up at us.
I thought overall you did speak well. It was clear and it was loud enough. And there was good inflection to it for the most part. When you had a little stumble, it was okay. It was natural, it was normal, and you moved on very quickly after that. And that will just work itself out over time, presentation by presentation that you do. I thought you did really know your material. This is a very difficult concept to begin with, and you're one of the few students that have actually read that book, which is not really an easy read, but it is a good understanding because this is not something you can understand as easily as you understand a style, for example, of architecture, or as you understand a principle that informs something that people start from. Because in this case, we're talking so much about your ability to observe in what already exists, not in something you're setting about to create.
And something that was hard was, as I stated, or in the book, I guess, he states that it's really hard for us as Americans to understand it, because there is, like, there was a lot of material. There was a video online where somebody went around asking people in Japan and China what wabi-sabi meant, and they couldn't define it because it's just something that they grew up knowing. And so it was really hard at first to kind of put together slides that were like chronological or made any sense, because it was hard to understand for a long time.
And your first understanding of it, you want to say, well, it's a different culture, it's a different culture. But as you get to understand the term, you begin to look at your own culture in a different way. Anyone else have a question or a comment about it?
I really liked how you incorporated like the Leaning Tower pizzas and everything. Just keep tying it all together into like our nowadays and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they deliberately, I mean, I know they deliberately made it that way, but I think it's cool that wabi-sabi can be applied to that, especially the Parthenon, because all the optical refinements they made to it make it visually perfect, but it's still, it's broken after all these years, and those like cracks and things have the beauty of their own. So.
They really do, and it's a terrific thing to finally get to see this principle. One of the early presentations I ever had, anybody did on wabi-sabi, a girl went home spring break to her family farm, and we had an ice storm during spring break. And she went around and just took pictures of hinges and doors and of the barns and windows and things like that as they had weathered, and incorporated, and a lot of the pictures were leaves that had dried up from the winter before that were stuck in there. And you began to look at these things that weren't beautiful at all before, and you suddenly do see the beauty in them. And that's like a gift, that you can begin to see beauty where you didn't see it before. So thank you, Sam.